This video contains elements that are not suitable for children under the age of 14. Viewer discretion is advised.
Last time we covered the hit model era specials, this time we're covering the nitrogen era specials. Yeah, I'm running out of intros for SODORAMA, folks, but let's kick things off with Hero of the Rails. Back when it first came out, it received a generally positive reception from the fandom, but will it stand the test of time? Let's find out. While racing Spencer, Thomas comes across a broken down engine from Japan called Hero, the master of the railway, and promises to have him restored to his former glory. But Thomas will need help from the rest of the Steam team in order to get Hero back in working order again without Spencer or Sir Topham Hatt finding out. As the first fully CGI production of Thomas and Friends, Hero of the Rails was a pretty big deal for the start of a new era of the franchise. It felt really strange going back to Hero of the Rails after recently covering Series 24. It's pretty clear how much the animation has progressed in the past decade or so, and the background from Hero of the Rails in Series 14 just looks really bare. That was because of the switch to CGI, but the cast had been greatly reduced. And the only other engines outside of the Steam team were Spencer, Hero, Victor, Mavis, Diesel, and Rosie, the latter two of which were in the background. Of course, Hero of the Rails was originally planned to be a model CGI production, much like Series 12, as it had been written prior to the CGI switchover, but due to budget cuts in 2007, it became a full CGI production. It was produced between January and May 2009, 4 months before it was released on DVD in the United States, which would explain why everything produced by Nitrogen had reused angles and the odd animation error here and there. The poor writing likely didn't help either. Speaking of which, the storyline for Hero of the Rails is basically the theatrical cut of Tatmar done better, as it puts more emphasis on Thomas and his friends. However, what really drags it down is the constant narration from both Michaels and the alliteration and rhyming in the dialogue, although that was mercifully done away with from King of the Railway onwards. I mean, come on! We can see how the engines are feeling, so why do we need to be spoon-fed this information? It's unnecessary fluff that kills the pacing. Hero's backstory states that he's the first engine on Sodor, which makes very little sense as the D-51s were not built until 1936 at the earliest. Unless he meant the first standard gauge engine on Sodor or it's an alternate continuity, it doesn't work. However, you could forgive it if you viewed Hero of the Rails as a soft reboot of the show or a separate continuity from the model series. Similar reason for the engines worrying about Hero being scrapped. Personally, I view both model and CGI series as the same continuity, but let's continue. Meanwhile, why is Japan referred to as Hero's homeland? We know he's from that country, so why not just outright state it? And not only that, Hero returns there at the end of a special, and yet he returns to Sodor again for the biggest present of all in Series 14 before returning to Japan again in Kenji on the Rails again 11 seasons later, which makes that ending feel meaningless in the long run. Oh, and as the special progresses, Hero becomes more wangsty about not going home till the end. I mean, if he misses his home that much, why doesn't he just stay there? It feels like he was kept around just to appease the Japanese audience, one that didn't need it to begin with as they were fans of the show regardless of Hero's presence. And lastly, there's Spencer serving as the special's antagonist. Having a steam engine as an antagonist was pretty refreshing. Had it been Diesel 10, it would have come off as cliche, but Spencer wanting Hero scrapped doesn't really make a lot of sense. Was it to spite Thomas? Jealous of Hero's fame? It's never really explained why, and it feels like it's just there to add conflict. So, does Hero of the Rails stand the test of time? Well, no, not really. Not that it didn't try, but like calling all engines the Great Discovery, it feels like it plays things a bit too safely, making it come off as an extended episode. Not to mention that Hero eventually crosses the line from sympathetic to borderline whiny as the special progresses, and the ending loses its impact once you've seen Series 13 to 20 and 24. So Hero of the Rails gets a 5 out of 10 from me. In my rankings, that's below the Great Discovery and above calling all engines. Next on our list, Misty Island Rescue, a special that's generally hated by the fandom, but is it really that awful? That's what I'm gonna decide for myself. After rescuing Diesel from a sticky situation, Thomas is sent to the mainland to visit their search and rescue center. However, the barge he is on breaks away and he ends up on a strange island covered in mist and run by 3 logging locomotives. Thomas has to rely on their help in order to get back to Sodor safe and sound. Is there anything I can add about Misty Island Rescue that people haven't discussed already? Well, I figured I'd start out with this.
No, Diesel! I'm sure Sir Topham Hatt means a really useful steamy. You'll never be that.
Okay, I feel like I'm gonna have to defend myself regarding what I said about a few episodes in my reviews for both series 14 and 15. No, I was not looking too deeply into James to the rescue sending an ableist message. If the number one rule of any children's show is to avoid teaching the target audience toxic lessons, then series 13 through 16 completely failed in doing so. Because of how rushed the production was for those 4 seasons, it's most likely there was barely any time to proofread these scripts, and in doing so, many bad lessons slipped under the radar. It's not looking too deeply into an episode's message when the problems are blatantly obvious. It makes an episode that's already bad feel even more so. And let's not forget, we're not even 10 minutes into the special when Thomas said that line to Diesel. Thomas, the protagonist of the story, is antagonizing someone for being different and he gets no punishment for it either. I felt far more sympathy for Diesel throughout the whole chasing than I did for Thomas throughout the whole damn special. That one scene sets the tone for Thomas's character for the remainder of Misty Island Rescue when he acts like a know-nothing know-it-all, constantly spouting that he makes good decisions.
I make good decisions, that's what I was told. I will not be fearful, I'll be brave and bold.
Okay, we get the point.
I make good decisions, that's what I was told.
Shut the hell up!
It almost makes you want to shun him through some buffers, doesn't it? Mind you, this is not Thomas's worst portrayal in any special, and I'll come to that shortly. Then there's the logging locos and Misty Island itself. Whatever those 3 idiots did to get banished there, I don't even want to know. Who's even in charge of them? And if there is someone in charge, why would the railway be left in such decrepit condition? To say that it's a health and safety hazard would be an understatement, but from what I understand, there was poor communication between Sharon Miller and the animation team as to how the Shake Shake Bridge would look. Sharon wanted a suspension bridge that sounded and felt to be in worse shape than it actually was, but the animation team went for a half-collapsed trestle instead. But then there's Ferdinand's catchphrase, which he repeats, no joke, 17 times.
That's right! 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 That's right!
That's right!
That's right! That's right!
That's right!
All I'm gonna say is this. Whoever decided that it would be a good idea to have Ferdinand spout his catchphrase like he's a Pokemon or a Groot is a fucking idiot!
Oh, come on. It's not my fault I was reduced to a squawking parrot every time I was on screen. I could have been a good character if it weren't for the producers dumbing me down. It doesn't help the fact that my buddies and I have a logging station with a bathtub and shower set up out in the open, making the place look like it was run by a bunch of stupid, crazy hillbillies.
Wait, a bathtub and shower out in the open? How the hell is that even possible? Oh, hey, Blake.
Hey, sorry if that bit came out of nowhere, but you mind if I say something about Ferdinand for a sec?
Not at all. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Anyways, Bash and Dash are pretty much annoying as hell, and they deserve all the hate they get. As for Ferdinand, however, I actually do see some potential with him. From what I heard in the early days when the film was still new, they were trying to make him be like the Edward of the trio, making him look similar to Edward's relationship with Bill and Ben, but the concept just fell flat on its face. There's so much Brenner and company could have done with the climax if he was given the proper chance.
You are now getting that climax.
In my universe, he's owned by the timber mill in Henry's Forest. He often collects timber and logs for the other engines, but he occasionally makes special trips to deliver them to carpenter businesses around Sodor or the Pax yard. There's also a love-hate relationship between him and Henry, with the latter never understanding what Ferdinand likes about cutting down nature's beauty. But he's never bothered by it, following the water off a duck's back motto, similar to what Porter does, though he does have a short fuse every now and then when you push him to his limits. And in case any of you think a climax in another country is unrealistic, it's not unheard of. Real climax locomotives have been shipped to other countries like Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, with the latter country having a recently restored one in operation in number 1694 at the Puffing Billy Railway in Belgrave. Well, that rambling went on longer than expected. Taking over from here, Zach.
Thanks, Blake. So to conclude my thoughts on Misty Island Rescue, I wouldn't call it the absolute worst thing in Thomas history, but it's still pretty bad. If Thomas wasn't so much of an arrogant, stupid dickhead, if it wasn't for the constant rhyming, alliteration, and repeated dialogue, and if Ferdinand wasn't, well, Ferdinand. Perhaps this wouldn't be so bad as the story itself is fairly strong and well paced for the most part, and there are moments of real tension, so I'm giving Misty on Rescue a 3 out of 10 for that reason. But it's about to get worse, folks.
You'll be laughing on the other side of your boilers soon, silly steamers. Yes.
2021 marks 10 years since Day of the Diesels first came out, and coming out the same year as Audrey's centenary, it, along with the final Railway series book, was hyped up by the fandom after the disappointment that was Series 15. But of course, the bigger the hype, the bigger the disappointment, and I get the feeling the fans still haven't learned that from 10 years on. But anyway, let's get Day of the Diesels out of the way. Percy feels left out when Thomas spends time with new fire engines Bell and Flynn, and he finds himself in the comfort of Diesel 10 and the other Diesels. Little does Percy realize, however, is that he's being used as a pawn in Diesel 10's scheme to take over the Steamworks. Carrying over a bit from Misty on Rescue, the post-credits scene with Diesel 10 was a last-minute decision by Nitrogen Studios to hint at his presence in Day of the Diesels. Was it worth it? Absolutely not. In fact, I don't even know where to begin with this. Actually, I think I do know where to begin.
Sodor Steamies don't go to the Diesel Works. It's dark, and it's dirty, and it's full of diesels. Diesels can be devious.
This is what I meant about Misty on Rescue not being Thomas's worst portrayal in any special. Because Day of the Diesels is, this special paints Thomas as the most selfish, xenophobic prick imaginable, yet it expects us to root for him when he's captured at the Diesel Works and Percy, Bell, and Flynn have to rescue him. After what Thomas said about the Diesels, I certainly don't. Oh, who could that? Hello, Rachel.
Hey, Zack. Before you go on, there is a point I'd like to bring up here.
Of course, by all means.
Okay, going back to this whole spiel on the Steam Diesel conflict, we all know that Duck and Diesel kicked this off in their book. But who's really more prejudiced here? If you ask me, I think it's Duck. Whoa, no offense to the guy, but listen to this quote from Dirty Work.
Certainly not, sir. No steam engine would be as mean as that.
And in case you think this was a slip of the tongue from Star or Carlin, here's a screenshot of the quote in question from the book that I highlighted. The word steam is italicized, showing Duck was putting emphasis on the word. I'll go more in depth with this another time, but basically, it's not all black and white with Duck and Diesel here, and unlike Thomas in these specials, I can defend Duck's case to an extent. All I will say is, please check your history with Duck's bases in regards to the timing of this book. It may shock you.
She's not joking there. Anyway, Thomas's prejudice against the Diesels is only the beginning with the problems I have with Day of the Diesels. It tries so hard to be taken seriously that it goes for the darker and edgier approach, but it actually becomes depressing. It doesn't help that the plot drags on. The dialogue may have done away with the rhyming altogether, and it was eventually carried over onto Series 16, but it's still terrible, and the pacing is loaded with extremely boring filler.
You said it, Zack. I mean, I don't mind if characters in media rhyme once in a while, but the Nitrogen era of Thomas, save for Series 16, Day of the Diesels, and Blue Mountain Mystery, took it up to 11.
I must hurry. I must go. Quickly to the country show. Buzzy bees are busy bees, and busy bees make honey. Buzzy bees are happy bees when it's warm and sunny. No, thank you. We don't need your help. We can do it alone. We'll push the logs safely to Sodor and home.
Blue engine in trouble! I'm racing to you! I'll find you! I'll save you! Your troubles are through!
What does y'all think it is, a Dr. Seuss book?
Not in a house, not with a mouse. I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them anywhere. Yuck. I would not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam, I am.
Actually, I take that back. Dr. Seuss had way more creativity than Sherman Miller and Co. did when they wrote for Thomas. But we digress. Please, Zack, go on.
Thank you. Anyway, Day of the Diesels was the first special to not have Thomas as the main protagonist in the loosest sense possible. That goes to Percy, and this special puts so much emphasis on him and Thomas being best friends that if you thought they were actually gay partners, given the way Percy acts around Thomas, you'd be easily forgiven. Little Green Engine comes off as mopey and whiny all because Thomas doesn't spend time with him. For God's sake, Percy, just grow up, will you? You've worked away from Thomas before and since, so why is that a big issue now? Wow. So you can't root for Thomas because he's a racist prick, and you can't root for Percy because he's a wangsty crybaby, and if you were expecting the Diesel to be the last remaining characters to root for, you're out of luck. Wanting to have their Diesel works restored is kind of understandable, but Diesel 10's motivation to get Sir Topham Hatt to listen to the Diesels is very confusing. First, he takes advantage of the fact that Percy is lonely and manipulates him into helping the Diesels out. Then he gets impatient when Percy hasn't told Thomas to tell Sir Topham Hatt about the Diesel works needing to be restored. By the way, why couldn't Percy just tell the controller himself? Then he tells Percy to bring Thomas into Diesel works so Diesel 10 could have Thomas held hostage along with Kevin. And then he takes over the Steamworks so he could force Sir Topham Hatt to listen to the Diesels. Except he and the Diesels are making a mess of the Steamworks as if it's a playground. Seriously, what was Diesel 10's plan in the first place? It feels like there never was one to begin with. The Diesels have caused mayhem at the Steamworks, yet getting their Dieselworks restored at the end feels very undeserved. The special's giving me no reason whatsoever to sympathize with Diesel 10 or his cronies. Then again, I don't care for any of the major players because everything is just so poorly thought out. Day of the Diesels is terrible, plain and simple. This is the kind of special that puts you in a bad mood, and it was the Steam vs. Diesel rivalry reached its nadir. It's easily the worst Thomas film since Tamar. Speaking of which, Diesel 10 was going to be voiced by Rupert Degas, who also voiced Flynn and Dart during series 15 and 16, but Matt Wilkinson took over as Degas was too scary, camp, and theatrical. One of them or a combination of all three, I'm not sure, and some scenes were removed for being too scary for children. I guess lightning really does strike twice. But which of the two specials do I think is worse? Honestly, it's a choice between teaching a toxic lesson to children and disrespecting the original creator's vision. I'm gonna say Tatmar is worse. Barely. As for Day of the Diesels, my rating is a -3 out of 10, if such a rating is even possible. Fuck this miserable excuse of a special. Also, what's with this line at the end?
You must all know that none of my engines is ever forgotten.
1. That line comes off as very ironic in hindsight. Sure, the fans don't forget, but the writers and executives seem to. And 2, more importantly, did they seriously not proofread this before sending it out to the voice actors?
No, they did not.
Damn. Okay, Matt, say your piece about the specials thus far.
Gladly. Hero of the Rails was actually not too bad, and I enjoyed Spencer as its antagonist. He reminds me so much of Kaiba during the Battle City finals of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime in that special. I should also point out that Hero of the Rails is the special where the characters first received their iconic voices for the UK and US audiences respectively, although some characters would be recast in later episodes and specials. While Hero of the Rails is not perfect, it's definitely better than the two specials to come. Now, Misty Island Rescue. It's the worst special of them all, bar none. Thomas is a racist bastard towards Diesel for absolutely no reason, is a know-it-all brat, the logging locos are friggin' idiots, Misty Island is a death trap, the rhyming is cranked up to 11. It all makes me want to scream! And that's all I'll say about it. But Day of the Diesels is certainly a close second or third in the badness department. The racism from Thomas is even worse here. Percy is whiny, and it's pretty much impossible to root for anyone. If I were to rewrite the special, I'd make Diesel 10 a greater threat, remove the racism, give Mavis and Salty both a bigger part, and have them side with our heroes, and have the other Diesels abandon Diesel 10 when he finally goes too far. I'd continue, but I don't want to bother Zack any more than I want to. Anyway, Dave, James, and I have a story to write. Until next time, folks!
Yeah, let's just move on already. I'm done with both Day of the Diesels and Misty Island Rescue as it is. The sooner they're forgotten about, the better. And now we conclude with Blue Mountain Mystery, the transitional special from the Nitrogen era to the Brenner era. Let's see if we can end this set of reviews on a high note, shall we? After Paxton has an accident at the Blue Mountain Quarry, Thomas takes his place in working there alongside the little engines. He soon comes across a mysterious little green engine by the name of Luke and wonders what bad thing he might have done that could risk him being sent away from Sodor forever. Now we're talking! After putting up with the garbage Misty Island Rescue and Day of the Diesels spewed out, Blue Mountain Mystery is a real breath of fresh air, although it doesn't take a whole lot to beat either of them, does it? As I've said, this special served as a transition from the Nitrogen era towards the Brenner era. This is because Andrew Brenner served as the script editor for the special before taking over from Sharon Miller as head writer in November 2010, officially succeeding her in 2012 during the production of Series 17. Who knows how much differently Blue Mountain Mystery might have gone had Brenner not come on board. One of the biggest signs of Brenner's influence were the CGI recreations of A Scar for Percy, The Sad Story of Henry, and Down the Mine. Although not 100% accurate, this was probably the first sign that the CGI series was acknowledging the model series, almost making them the same canon, even if the former made retcons such as Henry being in his new shape when he was rigged up in the tunnel, but I digress. These callbacks would eventually become commonplace, starting with King of the Railway.
Don't tell me he needs special coal again.
No, Gordon. That was fixed years ago.
And continuing all the way up to Thomas and the Royal Engine.
I've seen this kind of letter before, but that was when we had a visit from the Queen.
Is she coming to see us again?
Who will be pulling her train?
For the record, I am glad that most of the CGI series are finally making numerous references to the classic series, if not to the Railway series.
You're really fond of that kind of stuff in the Thomas series, aren't you, Cameron?
What can I say? Don't we all feel nostalgic whenever a subject like that is brought up? Good times. Good times.
Are you done now, Cam?
Huh? Oh, yeah, I am. Sorry about that. I'll let you do your thing now. I'm busy with my new Sonic story anyway. Toodles!
Yes, thank you, Cameron. Anyway, as Blue Mountain Mystery was the first special where he had a speaking role, Paxton should have been introduced here as he felt more like a character here than he did in Day of the Diesels. He especially shines in the climax where he's stuck between siding with Diesel and siding with Thomas, but ultimately decides to help out the latter to bring Victor to the quarry to prove Luke's innocence. Speaking of whom, after establishing himself as a fantastic supporting character for the past 3 years since Here of the Rails, Victor is given a backstory explaining how he ended up on Sodor. It makes an already endearing character even more so, and you really feel sorry for Victor, thinking he's destined for scrap, but he gets a second chance at life along with a new coat of paint. You also feel sorry for Luke, having to carry all that guilt within him for all these years, thinking he bumped Victor off the ship by mistake, only to turn out that he was alive the whole time. I would have liked to see more of Victor and Luke's friendship expanded upon. Fun fact, Victor's real-life basis, Minaz number 1173, was rescued from Cespede's sugar mill the same year the special came out. And that brings me on to the controversial climax where the Little Engines get cross with Thomas for spilling the secret of Luke to Victor. I've watched the same scene that many fans did, but if you stop and think about it, Thomas was in the wrong as he didn't think about how he told the Little Engines about what he had told Victor. Or maybe he did and we didn't see it, but that's neither here nor there. But anyways, regardless of his intentions, Thomas technically broke a promise he made to the Little Engines, and they had every right to be upset with him. Imagine that you spent years trying to protect someone to keep them safe, possibly ending up in prison, and that one person you trusted to keep it in the dark suddenly decides to spill the beans to someone else. You'd be pretty upset too. But then again, it might have played out a bit better if Diesel and Paxton had come to the quarry while Thomas was explaining what he had discovered, and the Little Engines think that he sold out Luke to the big Diesels. Better yet, why not mention that Paxton had eavesdropped on Thomas and Luke's conversation? Still, I've seen worse. As for the mid-credits scene with Renee's repaint, it was pretty meaningless in the long run as he was repainted back to his old color in King of the Railway, but it did at least bring Renee's subplot to a funny end. It was most likely done to make up for Duncan's absence as he wouldn't return until Series 18. Despite a few bumps, unlike Series 16, Nitrogen Studios ended their time with Thomas on a strong note with Blue Mountain Mystery. The story is solidly paced, the characters were likable, and the moral, for once, wasn't toxic. It's probably the only Nitrogen special that's thus far stood the test of time. Blue Mountain Mystery really was a sign that things are about to get better for the Little Blue Tank Engine and his friends, even if it didn't last very long. I give this special a solid 8 out of 10, making this the best special thus far. In conclusion, the Nitrogen specials were a mixed bag. Here of the Rails was a decent start, but it hasn't aged that well for me at all, whereas Blue Mountain Mystery ended things on a high note. As for Misty and Rescue and Day of the Diesels in between, they practically cancel each other out as far as ratings go. What really bogged them down was constant narration from either Michael Angelis or Michael Brandon, and not to mention annoying rhyming and alliteration, at least until Blue Mountain Mystery did away with it altogether. And so if the average score amongst the Nitrogen specials is 3.3 out of 10, and you have the scores of Calling All Engines and The Great Discovery, the average score for Thomas specials thus far is 3.8 out of 10. So how will the Brenner Pen specials compare to the Miller specials and Calling All Engines? That is something we shall find out next time.
There's also a love-hate relationship between him. But he's never. See, messing it up again. There's also a love-hate relationship with. Whoops. Well, that rambling went on a little bit longer than expected. Oh man, this is gonna be a blooper reel, isn't it?